Direct injection motors are awesome. They are a modern marvel for internal combustion engines, and they offer tons of power, tons of efficiency, and tons of tuning capability over older port injection motors. But one of the biggest downfalls that they have is unfortunately carbon buildup. Now, carbon buildup is nothing new in just direct injection engines. However, it is more of a problem in these engines as time goes on. If you have a high performance engine or a high mileage engine or a high performance high mileage engine, you could probably assume that after 120,000 miles, there's a significant amount of carbon buildup built into those valves. Today, we're gonna go over a cheap, easy, and effective way that's non-intrusive that could potentially help lift some of those carbon deposits up. My name is 𝗢𝘄𝗲𝗍𝗂. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Let's get right into it. Now, one of the biggest differences between an older port injection motor and a newer direct injection motor is going to be exactly where the fuel is dispersed. Now, in an engine, you have three things. You have fuel, you have spark, and you have air. Now, we're not gonna be talking about air or spark today, but the fuel is going to be very important. Now, in a direct injection motor, like I said, it's gonna change where that fuel is put in. In this case, it's gonna be injected directly into the cylinder. So it's not going to be washing over the ports and over the valves as you would get in a port injection motor. So gas stations like Shell, they offer Nitro Plus on their high octane. It supposedly has better cleaning capability and better cleaning properties with different additives that they already have in the fuel. And they put that on the Super because a lot of the cars that require 93 are higher performance direct injection engines that sometimes might need a little bit help. But it's kind of misleading. Because in fact, in a direct injection motor, you will not be touching the valves with the gasoline. You will not be cleaning the valves, even if it claims to do so, because the gas never touches the valves in these engines. In fact, like I said, it goes directly into the cylinder. Now, this gives you much greater control over the volume and the consistency of that fuel delivery, so you can adjust the spark a little bit more finely, and you can adjust the air intake a little bit more finely, and then get some great twin turbocharged V8s that can put out almost 700 pound-foot of torque and still get 30 miles per gallon on the highway. So it's a great trade-off, but you have to be aware of what you're getting into. And these do require a little bit of extra maintenance on that 50 to 70,000 mile mark if you just bought your car and you're running it up to 50 or 60 now. Now, my specific situation, this was actually owned by an older gentleman. I don't believe he drove it the way it was quote unquote intended to. This is not an AMG, but it does have some balls, and just the nature of a direct injection. If you don't keep those revs high at some point, keep that heat high and blow some of that carbon out, just like back in the old days, that does help. The Italian tune-up, it's not a myth. It does actually do things to an extent. If you get it heated up as much as possible and then really ramp on the thing, you could blow out a little bit extra carbon. Now, in the worst cases, you will have to get a physical media blast or a dry ice blast. And what that does is you take off the intakes. This doesn't require an engine out or anything serious, but you take the intakes off, you take the intake manifold off, and you're able to access those valves and those ports. I will be getting that done on my car in a little bit. I do have a shop I finally found near me, so we're gonna go ahead and check them out soon. So if you're interested in that, definitely leave a like. But today we're gonna be going over something a little bit easier, an $8 can of CRC turbo and intake cleaner. So this is actually intake valve and turbo cleaner by CRC. I am not sponsored by them. I don't have any affiliation with them. It just was a product that I saw. I didn't want to go with the regular Seafoam and things like that. I want to try something a little bit different because you all heard the tropes of Seafoam. I've used it in the past. Let's try something different. So I found some good reviews on this, and it seems to be a good product. So what this is supposedly supposed to do is be spraying into the intake or sprayed into the intake of your vehicle. And I'll kind of demonstrate how this would work on this specific engine. But the idea is to coat those intake valves that the fuel will never get to, but the air does. So that way, over time, you let it heat soak for about an hour or so. You should be able to break down all this carbon and at least most of it or a significant amount of it on your valves and maybe even on your pistons a little bit. So when you go for a nice drive after, it should blow out a lot of the problematic carbon that you might be experiencing. So first, what you're gonna wanna do is locate where your intake is. Now, if you have a turbo, you're gonna wanna actually, if you wanna get the full cleaning properties of the product with the turbo, you do wanna spray it through the turbo. So in this case, we have two intakes in front of the engine, both going to the twin turbos on either bank of the vehicle, which then wraps around into the single throttle body in the back, which is inaccessible in this vehicle. If you can't access access your throttle body and you just want to deal with the carbon inside of your valve train, just go straight to the throttle body. You'll get a much more effective, much more high concentrated dose. If you go through the turbos, a lot of that will get evaporated and eaten up by the turbos, but it will clean them off as well. Debatable how much that will actually help, but it is there and it won't hurt. So find your intakes. If you're going through your turbos, make sure to find the proper charge pipes there, and you want to go past any sensors. Now this car does not have a mass airflow sensor, but it does have 2 air sensors in the back of the air boxes. So you do want to avoid that. This is sensor safe. You do want to avoid a mass airflow sensor regardless of whatever it says, but it should be sensor safe. Just try not to run it through sensors if you can help it. So once you've located your air box and where exactly you want to spray, it's only going to take you maybe a flathead screwdriver or some basic tools to undo your air box. You don't want to blow it through your filter. It can go through an intercooler like this car. It does go through the intercooler, so that's not a huge deal, but definitely don't want to hit any sensors like I said. From here, you do want to grab your can. Now this can does have an attachable straw or a built-in straw to it. Now this is a great thing. You don't have to worry about tubing it up or anything. I know back in the day, some really shitty straws on the seafoam stuff would fall off a lot and you'd have to duct tape them up and everything. You don't have to worry about that. This is a nice, they call it a perma straw. Whatever, it's a straw. Just make sure you don't hold the can sideways. You can do upside down like that, and you can do up like that, but if you go sideways, it's gonna end up putting out a little bit too much liquid, and they don't recommend it over time. Doing a couple of so upside down or top end. Now in this specific car, I did have to go upside down, but before we start spraying, we have to make sure a couple of key things are ready with the car. Number one, is it up to temperature? Make sure that your temperature gauge is working properly and your car is going for a 15-20 minute ride. It is up to temperature. All the fluids are nice and warm, and the internals of the engine, aka the oil temp basically, is going to be up to temperature. If that is, great. Park it in your driveway wherever you're gonna do this job and get ready for the next step. Number two is you are gonna need a second person or a helper. And what you're gonna wanna do is have that person sit in the car, turn it on, idle it for a few minutes, and once you are ready and have everything detached in your engine bay and are ready to start spraying, have them lift that RPM all the way up to 2,000 RPM and hold it there. Don't go over 3,000. Try to keep it between 2 and 2,500. It should be fairly easy. A lot of engines like to sit right there. So 2,500 RPM. Get there and have them stay there. Now this whole process may take 15 or 20 minutes to spray this can in. Like I said, every second or so is what you're gonna wanna do. You're gonna wanna spray for a second, let go, wait a second, spray for another second, let go, wait another second. You get the point. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Spray that in. If you see the engine or hear the engine lose a little bit of revs, it's okay. It's usually just on the first couple of sprays, it'll kind of latch onto that carbon, whatever, and immediately you'll start feeling the engine not stutter as much as you do these sprays. If it is stuttering a lot and really dying down and killing those RPMs or even killing the car, you got to go a lot lighter. So maybe shorten your 1 second bursts, or maybe say Mississippi a little bit faster. But you don't want to mess up the air fuel intake in this car that much, or in these cars when you're doing it. You just want to kind of sneak this in to the air ratio to help clean the engine. So once the can is empty, go ahead, recycle it, throw it out, do whatever you want to do with it. And then you got to let the car sit for right around 45 minutes to an hour. Now this is one of the most important parts, and it kind of sucks because, at least for me, I was excited to get a whole bunch of smoke out the back, which, spoiler alert, that didn't happen like you usually get with seafoam, but you have to let it wait an hour so it can settle in, heat soak, let the engine's heat really do the work and kind of cook onto that, that carbon, hopefully breaking it up. Now this will mostly only help with the softer carbon, which is why it's really important to get the engine up to temperature nice and warm, because it will start to melt that carbon down, get it a little bit liquidy, a little bit oily, so it's able to dissolve it a lot easier. So when you do start the car in an hour, you should see at least a little bit of a puff out the back on your first startup. And that's pretty much all she wrote on that one. So it's a pretty easy thing to do at home, an easy way to see if it's just some soft carbon buildup to help fix whether noise is in your car or any performance that you might have. And if you have a higher mile engine, whether it's something like this or if it's just any old 100,000 mile engine in any car, it's definitely worth doing. It's definitely worth taking a look at if it's a direct injection motor. But that's about it, guys. I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for the support. I know you guys have been long awaiting. I know one person in specific has been waiting for this video for a very long time, so I'm glad I was finally able to get it done for you guys. It wasn't as grand as I had hoped. I actually had recorded this once before, deleted all the footage, and I am now redoing it again, so it's a little bit of a white lie, but I know you love me. Anyways, if you are interested in having a physical media blasting or a dry ice blasting video done on this vehicle, definitely leave a like, leave a subscribe, and obviously with the 1 year update video that I plan on doing with this thing, which you're not gonna wanna miss that. But that is coming up. I'm gonna be doing that probably within the next week or so once I get some final bills in and paid. So looking forward to that, or at least you should be looking forward to that. I'm not. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you keeping up with me, and we'll see you in the next one.